Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you would like to learn belly dance in this new year but you don't know where to start exactly, then this series of videos will be perfect for you. In the previous video of the series, I taught you how to do the hip lift, but today I'm going to teach you how to do the hip slide. So if you haven't checked out that video, I will link it up here for you. This series is meant to be an example for you or a guideline for you to follow and to learn how do you go about learning belly dance. First of all, we learn the basics and then we go on and combine these basics to make our compound movements. So today is the second movements of the basics, which is the slide. If you're ready, then let's get to it. All right, guys, for the slide, we're going to pay attention to our knees because in the previous video's move, we learned that the knees are essential to lifting the hip up. So they help us to get range of motion. But in the slide, we're not going to have our knees moving. We're going to keep them straight. But when I say straight, I don't mean overly locked and straight. I don't want any pain or tension in the knees. I'm just gonna stand the way I stand in normal day life. So my knees don't have a significant bend to them. I'm going to start to try to push my hip outside my body. So unlike the hip lift, in the hip lift we had this restriction that we're working only vertically. So now we're going to actually do the opposite. We have a restriction not to work vertically at all, but we want to work horizontally. So I'm imagining my hips running on train tracks. They're just following this horizontal line. What usually happens in this move when you're starting to learn it is that your opposite knee will cave in and bend. So you're trying to slide to your left side, but your right knee is bending, giving you this slope in the hip that we don't want. So we don't want the hip to change levels. We want both hips always neutral at vertical level. So when I slide out to the left, I make sure my right knee is still straight, and when I slide out to the right, I make sure my left knee is still straight. So this will ensure that you are not caving your knees and not having this change in the levels. Also, you might notice that your upper body is reacting in multiple of ways. So you might see it just sliding with you like this, so just following you, or you might see that it is actually leaning down on the opposite side. So when you slide to the left, your right side or your chest is going down to the right side, and when you're sliding to the right, your chest is going down to the left. So it would do this. So how do we avoid this? I will give you an exercise later on, but for now I want you to think about pushing your hip out to the left, but I want you to think about your right chest lifting up. So I don't want it to cave in. I'm thinking lifting up. Or I can think about pushing my hip out to the left, but my left side of my chest is going into my waist. I'm thinking about pushing it in and down like this. So you'll feel a contraction here. So I'm sliding and pushing my chest in and down just to avoid this. So I also want my chest to stay at a horizontal level, and I don't want it to cave in like this. So pushing my hip out to the right, and then my right side of my chest going down and in, down and in, down and in. This can be a way for you to equalize this upper body reaction. And now, how to make sure that we have a complete still upper body. So sometimes we might have like slight movement like this. So how do we train to have a completely still upper body? I'll show you in this exercise. So you can find a wall where you can actually stand like this. You don't need so much space to the sides, but if you have more space, it could be better. So I need to lean my head and shoulders on the wall. So I'm actually resting my head and shoulders on the wall. And there's a small space between my butt and the wall. So I'm not completely pressed on the wall with my butt, but in the same time, I'm not completely away. I can still feel the wall. And this will help us to actually feel if the movement is equal on both sides, to avoid twisting out like this. So we always want both sides to be touching the wall equally. So now we're going to try to slide out and keeping our upper body fixed on the wall. This will help us to kind of acclimate our body to this feeling of complete isolation between the upper body and the lower body. So I'm trying to almost like wipe the wall with my hips, but in the same time, drill my head and shoulders in a specific spot, and I'm not changing them at all. So if you start to feel like, okay, one side of your hip is touching, but the other left, that means you're twisting. So both hips are always touching the floor, the wall equally. All right, guys, so this was the slide movement. In the next video, we're gonna start learning the tuck and release, which will be the third and last basic movement for this series. And then from there onwards, we're gonna start to combine these basic movements. So please be patient with yourself when you're practicing your basics. That's why they're called basics, because they are the foundation, and with them, we make everything else. So make sure you take your time, make sure the technique is correct. I know it could be boring at first when you're just drilling dry movements over and over, but it's so worth it at the end. For anyone who would like to book a Zoom private class with me, the link is in the description, and I will see you in the next class. Bye.